Welcome to the TOEFL listening section. In this part, you will hear one or more conversations in an academic or campus context, such as a discussion between a student and a professor or between two students. You may take notes while listening. Listen to part of a conversation. You will hear it only once, so listen carefully. After the conversation, you will answer questions about what you heard. Some questions will ask you about main ideas and details. Others will ask about implied meaning, speaker attitude, or how ideas relate to one another. Use both what is stated and what is implied to answer.
Good afternoon, Professor Hernandez. Thanks for meeting with me during your office hours.
Good afternoon, Maya. How is your literature review on language acquisition in bilingual children coming along?
I have read several studies, but I am unclear about some cognitive development patterns in multilingual environments.
That is a wide area. What specific patterns are you trying to synthesize for your paper?
Primarily how bilingual exposure affects phonological development, vocabulary growth, and executive function in young children.
Those are the classic domains. Do you distinguish between simultaneous bilinguals and sequential bilinguals in your review?
Yes, but I am not sure how much the timing matters for cognitive outcomes. Some sources say early simultaneous exposure gives advantages, while others emphasize input quality.
Both timing and input matter. Simultaneous bilinguals receive concurrent input and often develop separate lexical systems. Sequential bilinguals may transfer phonology or syntax from the first language to the second, especially if the second language is introduced after a consolidated first language.
Could you give an example of transfer affecting development?
Sure. A Spanish-English child may produce English without articles or use Spanish verb morphology patterns when they speak English. That cross-linguistic influence arises because the child maps similar functions across systems.
I read that code switching is often treated as a sign of confusion, but some authors say it is rule-governed. Which view is more accurate?
Evidence supports the idea that code switching is a strategic, rule-based behavior. Bilingual children switch according to discourse context and interlocutor, and they follow syntactic constraints when they mix languages.
So code switching can indicate pragmatic competence rather than deficiency.
Exactly. It reflects metalinguistic awareness. Children who can choose which language fits a social setting show implicit control over their language systems.
How about vocabulary size and input frequency?
Vocabulary should be considered across both languages. Total conceptual vocabulary is often comparable to monolingual peers, but single language vocabulary can appear smaller if input in one language is limited.
So a child with more Spanish exposure at home and more English exposure at school will have split vocabulary across contexts.
Yes, researchers often measure conceptual vocabulary to account for translation equivalence. Also, quality of input matters. Rich conversational turns boost lexical growth more than passive exposure.
You mentioned executive function earlier. Is there strong evidence that bilingualism enhances cognitive control?
Many studies show bilingual children perform better on tasks requiring inhibitory control, task switching, and cognitive flexibility. The constant practice of selecting one language while suppressing the other seems to strengthen these skills.
But I have also seen null results. Why are findings mixed?
Differences in methodology account for mixed results. Sample heterogeneity, socioeconomic factors, language dominance, and the specific executive function tasks used all influence outcomes.
That makes sense. For my method section, should I include measures of input quantity and code switching frequency?
Absolutely. Include parent-reported input, audio recordings in naturalistic settings, and standardized executive function tasks. Longitudinal designs help reveal developmental trajectories rather than static snapshots.
I could follow 3 children over a year and record monthly samples of natural speech. Would that be feasible for a term project?
For a term project, you may need a smaller sampling schedule, but a focused longitudinal design with detailed transcription can reveal patterns like stabilization of grammar or shifts in dominance.
Could I include an experimental task to test phonological transfer?
Yes. A minimal pair discrimination task in both languages can show whether a child perceives phonemic contrasts differently due to transfer from the other language.
Would it be important to control for the home language and schooling language?
Definitely. Language dominance influences performance and exposure. You should record language use by interlocutor and setting to get a clear picture of contextual input.
Are there ethical concerns when working with bilingual families?
Yes. Respect family preferences about language use. Obtain informed consent in the preferred language, and avoid implying one language is superior. Feedback to families should be culturally sensitive.
I want to include a short case study. I know a community where children speak both Mandarin and English. They often mix tonal patterns when learning English vowels.
That is a valuable example. Mandarin tonal awareness can influence intonation patterns in English. Documenting prosodic transfer sheds light on cross-linguistic phonetic effects.
Lastly, are there common misconceptions I should address in the conclusion?
Yes. Common misconceptions are that bilingualism causes language delay and that mixing languages indicates confusion. You should emphasize that bilingual development follows lawful patterns and that outcomes depend on exposure, quality, and social support.
That helps a lot. For my paper, I will argue that multilingual environments shape cognitive and linguistic development through specific mechanisms like transfer, input distribution, and control demands.
That is a coherent thesis. If you want, bring a draft and some transcripts next week, and we can look at coding procedures together.
I will do that. Thank you for the guidance and the practical suggestions.
You are welcome, Maya. I look forward to reading your draft.
Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
Code switching is a strategic, rule-based behavior, and it reflects metalinguistic awareness.
This concludes the conversation portion. For more TOEFL practice tests and study materials, visit Spinta.org.